Good evening, fellow Americans. There are two types of banks. Deposit banks are those that we use every day, which do checking accounts, credit cards, and auto loans. Most all deposit banks are regulated by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which will close them instantly, prosecute the swindlers who stole the money, and write you a check to compensate you for your loss. The other type of bank is the investment bank. Wall Street, 401ks, mutual funds, stocks, bonds, futures. Many deposit banks do both. The deposit bank side is honest and will give you back at least all the money you put in, because they will go to jail if they don't. The investment banks are dishonest and lie to you and swindle you out of your money using complex transactions. They seduce the customer with statements like, "Our investment technicians who have made millions in the stock market continue to beat the market, making millions, and can make you $2 million in 30 years. So you sign the contract, which tricks you into agreeing to risk, which prevents you from suing them, and also gives them exclusive rights and control over the money. This systematically bilks you out of your money, while it encourages you to continue to put more money in with statements like, 'Got to think long term.' The sole purpose of the investment banking industry is to make a lot of money for the people who own and run these 401ks, mutual funds, and big banks. They believe that investors are greedy and deserve to be swindled. Because it is so easy, they do it on a grand scale, and the poor investor just loses, as did 78 million people who surged their way into retirement in 2008, only to find after 30 years they had an average of only $60,000. There are two Americas. One is Wall Street, which includes the entire investment banking industry, 401ks, mutual funds, stocks, bonds, futures, etc. And the other is Main Street, which is everywhere else that is not Wall Street. The investment banking industry is simply a big parasite on the Main Street economy, bilking low-income people on Main Street out of their life savings. We are told that the social purpose of 401ks, mutual funds, and big investment banks is to allocate money to small businesses, which create 70% of all the jobs. But they're not doing that, because making 5% is not enough money for them. They can make a lot more money by bilking money out of low-income people like us and constantly get away with it. The flow of money into Wall Street or the investment banking industry starts with the 401k money from small investors into 401k funds. After the fund owners have taken $1 billion from the fund for themselves, they become very loose with the remaining monies and hungry for some action, so they gamble part of it with hedge funds. The hedge funds need to make a very high percentage, like 20, 30, 40%, in order to pay the 401k mutual funds a higher percentage than they could get in other places, or so both the mutual fund owners and the hedge fund owners think. So the hedge funds gamble with the big investment banks on collateralized debt obligations and credit default swaps. Minimum transaction is $100 million. There are over 12,600 hedge funds that can do this size transaction, and most of them lose a lot of money to the big banks. The top people in the big banks make many millions of dollars, and it all comes from the poor 401k victim on Main Street. However, surprisingly, this does not really affect the 401k victim, because the 401k fund is going to make him a victim either way. Here's how. The word risk is the biggest money-making scam of all time, because it is used so extensively to bilk money out of investors on Wall Street, especially in the 401k fund business. Here's how it works. The wording in the contract forces you to agree to risk, but takes away all control that you might have and gives it to them. Well, what's left for you to control? Nothing. It means that they don't have to report to you what they do with any monies. The statements you get are voluntarily on their part and are used to manipulate you into giving them more money, while the money you give them becomes theirs. The legal definition of risk is that the victim gambles his total monies in the 401k fund for the chance, just the chance, of obtaining the mythical, never exactly stated, delusional high yield, which could be 0.1%, it could be 20%. No one knows. It's the yield that you wish you could get. Just a dream. Wishful thinking. But they will never let you get it because it is all part of a sophisticated scam to swindle you out of your money. Big reason why you won't get it is because an exact number is never stated by the 401k fund, and they are the ones who determine what your account balance is. The account balance can be any amount they want to print on the statement that they send you. Don't even think about stocks and bonds. If they trade those, it has no effect on you. If they win, well then they win, not you. If they lose, so what? It wasn't their money to begin with. See, they seduce you with the expectation of 1.5 to 2 million in 30 years to entice you to sign their contract, which forces you to agree to risk and gives them exclusive rights and control over all monies you give them. Now think about it. Because you agreed to risk, the level and definition of risk, which is totally determined by them, how can you possibly sue them in a court of law? When you tell the judge that you were swindled, they will argue that you agreed to risk, that you were taking a chance risking all your monies in order to get this high yield. But unfortunately, your investments lost, so by contract, you lost. Here's the contract to prove what you agreed to. After all, you're not a child. You knew what you were doing when you signed the contract and gave us your money. The investor has to take some responsibility, and the judge will throw your suit out of court. Now do you understand why you can't sue them?